My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Cristani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I am joined by Dr. Rita Louise, who is a really great fun gal. That's her description, and she's also a medical intuitive. She's the best-selling author and founder of the Institute of Applied Energetics and former host of Just Energy Radio. Dr. Rita is the author of the books Dang, It Was Me All Along, The Dysfunctional Dance of the Empath and Narcissist, Stepping Out of Eden, E.T. Chronicles, What Myth and Legends Have to Say About Human Origin, Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4. I will edit that later. Dark Angels, an Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities, and the Power Within, a Psychic Healing Primer, as well as hundreds of articles that have been published worldwide. She is also the producer of a number of full-length and feature videos. Dr. Rita has appeared on film, radio, television, and has spoken at conferences around the world covering topics such as health and healing, relationships, ghosts, intuition, ancient mysteries, and the paranormal. So a big welcome to the show, Dr. Rita.
Thanks so much for having me. I think we're going to have a great time.
I think so too. There is so much I want to unpack about your bio. So I don't actually read about people till I'm reading out their bio, and I do it on purpose so I can be genuinely like, oh, wow, this is exciting. And and there's such a breadth of your work, and being in the intuitive space myself, I understand why, because the more curious you get, right, the deeper down different rabbit holes you get pulled, but also the more the universe tends to share with you. So how did you evolve from, doing applied medicine and, UFOs and ghosts? And I'm sure there's a story there.
So I love the way that you frame that, because most people think that the work that I do with like this mental intentionality. And really everything that I do is kind of like Spirit says, hey, you need to do this. You need to research this. You need to look at that. And it's like, okay. And then I'll be doing it. And they're like, oh, yeah, you need to turn that into a book. Like, okay.
I understand completely.
The worst interview question for me is, what are you going to be doing in 5 years? And I'm like, they haven't told me, so I don't know.
I love it. I love it so much. So how did this journey of evolvement begin?
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay. So I really started on my spiritual path when I was about 13. So, I mean, in retrospect, and this came up to me recently, I've had two loves in life. One was archaeology and anthropology, so like ancient mysteries and the La Brea tar pit and the theory of evolution. I mean, that was my first love in life. And then I got turned on to the concept of ESP, which now is like psychic ability stuff, when I was about 13. And I've been on that path ever since. So, I mean, I had a day job. I worked as an engineering drafter / designer person for 15 years.
What was that?
Well, it's like you have to have that professional career, and but then I found the Berkeley Psychic Institute and studied with them and discovered that I had been very psychic my whole life. And it was just really easy for me to let go of that day job and go do my work full time.
Which is so beautiful, because often we do have to let go of that day job, even though we have the fear or anything, it's like, where are they going to go? But when you do let go, that's when the opportunities actually open up. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like, you have to say, okay, I'm ready to quit, or I'm ready to jump all in. And then that's when things start to align.
Well, sometimes the universe helps you out, because
Sometimes.
I was having that fear about letting go. And then I got let go from the company with All right, there's a whole story with this. I'll share the story.
Oh, please
So
do.
we were sitting here talking about like spirit nudging you along. And so it was, and I don't remember the exact year, but it was September. And I kept getting this message, you need to pay off your bills. You need to pay off your bills. And so, and I could be left with the house payment and a car payment, and then just like whatever, utilities,
Food.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm like sending this credit card $300 a month and this one five. I mean, I'm like paying this debt down. And not that there was tons, but based on what I was doing, by March of the next year, my husband and I would have been debt free, minus the house payment and the car payment. So I'm like working on it. 18, me and 7 other managers all got let go. I got 9 weeks of severance pay. Plus, since they let me go, I got unemployment.
Yes.
Well, I calculated it, and that 9 weeks of severance pay took me to the end of March, which made it so that on that same schedule, I was able to pay off all that debt. And I'm like, universe, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I never went back. I never went back.
Oh, I had this happen the other week because I quit my job, and currently like we're in between like leaving this place and the next place. My husband had to go back to work. Anyway, and we just needed some extra cash. And I went, my background's as a speech language pathologist. And I went, universe, I just need a speech assessment. That'd be really cool. Like I can still do them. It'd be really cool if you just sent me someone that all they wanted was an assessment and nothing else. I can do that. And within an hour, I had a message from an old client say, hey, can we have a speech assessment done? And I was like, oh, yes, thank you. I'm like, how's next week? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And, it was, but it's funny because when you are aligned and when you do need that help and you truly ask it from a place of like, hey, we just need a little bit extra this week, it shows up. And it happens again and again and again. And, my husband's there freaking out. He's like, oh, like my current job's not going to cover, the extra repayments we need. I said, we're okay. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm really not stressed about it. I'm really trusting it. I said, I earned this much last week, and I didn't plan that. They all booked in last minute. And he's like, I was like, yes. So I guess it's, allowing and having that space, right? It's so powerful.
It is so powerful, and just, this is very personal. So I'm in a big transition now, you're going to
I understand.
Like, are you serious? So
no, me too.
Spirit was like, you should go buy a house to go fix up, and then you can rent it. So I called this realtor that I've worked with before, and I'm like, hey, I'm back looking for a house to work on. And he goes, I have the perfect house for you. And I go there and I take a girlfriend of mine, and she's looking around like, this place is a dump. I mean, there was no sheetrock on the wall. I mean, it was bad. But it had really great bones and the price was right. And I'm like, okay, because you're really going to buy this? I'm like, yeah. So I worked on that for a really super long time. I finished it 4th of July week. But now it's like, okay, well, now you have all this like free time. And, there's this part of me, like the ego part of me going, okay, but you need to be busy. You need to like find stuff to do, but I don't know what, because Spirit's not saying, hey, this is your next move. I mean, the house was very clearly their move. And so I've been trying to practice patience and just allowing. And it's a little challenging at times.
I'm same, and I journal, and I just keep getting trust and surrender. And I'm like, can I have a timeline? And they're like, soon. I was like, what soon? And they're like, soon.
Well, I'm hoping this is them. They're like, once the house is rented, which I'm figuring it'll be like by the end of the month.
Yeah.
Then things will start shifting and moving again.
Well, we're coming out of Mercury retro. So anyone listening, we're filming this like in the midst of Mercury retrograde. So, it's a time to finish up projects and then new ones to come out, right? So, yeah, I love that. Actually, I'm going to talk to you after the show because they're giving me a message for you. So I'm going to share that later. Yes. All right. We will unpack that later. So they say later. Okay. Tell me a bit about medical intuition and how that came about.
Okay. So as I said, I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute and studied with them. so I was fine with being Rita the psychic chick, and I'll talk to you about your relationships or whatever. But I volunteered at a healing clinic, and they were all doing Reiki, and I had like my two little chairs, and I would do energy work on them. But as I was doing the energy work, I'm always finding their health stuff. It's like, I see this line of energy in their gut, and I'm like, hysterectomy or, whatever. I don't know. I would like, or they would have like their back would be messed up, and I'd go, do you have scoliosis? And I realized that there are a lot of people that do intuitive work that they don't get the health issue stuff. Because when you do intuitive work, it's like we all have our channels. So like people that are mediums, they talk to dead people. I don't talk to dead people. Um, they might want to talk to me, but I don't want to talk back. And so apparently this whole health thing, is just very apparent to me. And so what the first thing that people would ask is, well, what can I do about it? So I ended up going back to school and getting a degree as a naturopath so that I could say, hey, maybe take these supplements, or, this is the emotional piece. And actually, and I date myself here really bad. I was doing this work long before Carolyn Mays came out with her book Anatomy of Spirit, and the term medical intuition came into use.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I went down that path for 5 minutes, say for 5 minutes. But because I could always feel other people's pain, and I didn't know that. And it was just I was listening to a podcast, and this is like the universe leaving you little breadcrumbs, right? And it's like, hey, we're interviewing medical intuitive, blah 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 blah. Come do the course, and I'm like, oh, and I got you need to do this course, and I was like, all right, but I don't have the money for that. They're like, we'll make it appear. And then the next day, again, an old client who owed me the exact amount that the course was decided to pay me after, 12 months. I was like, oh, thank you very much. I'm going to do that. Thank you. And, but the best thing I learned about that, because I was doing sessions for free on people to tune in, but the best things I learned was, and this is nothing's ever wasted, right? So the first thing I learned was how to turn it off so I don't feel everybody else. And secondly, it led me to study herbalism because I keep getting herbs for all these people. And I'm like, I don't know what these do. What do they do? I have no idea. Like it's just like a bit like you're like, I don't know what these medical conditions are. How can I actually help these people? Same thing. And then I realized that I don't fit well with structure because the person that taught the course had this very fixed structure of things. And I'm like, oh, this feels icky. And whenever I did it, I felt like really out. And then I just was like, nah, I'm just going to trust where I'm pulled. And that was more powerful than actually, having that structure and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was like, I don't fit into boxes. I need to just take what works for me and then just be that space. And that's how my intuitive healing kind of evolved in itself too.
Mm-hmm. But I can understand in the educational area
Yeah,
where you want
definitely.
structure, but if you're any good, then you just kind of do whatever you want, and you do whatever spirit tells you to do. And it's like, but, but I hear you. So I do a lot of health work with people, and my methodology is tell me what's wrong, so you have a digestive issue, you have whatever, tell me what your symptoms are, because I can spend an hour looking for them, or you could just tell me because you already know what they are. And and then we can spend the time working on digging into it deeper, So anyway, but I've had clients where I just get like weird stuff in my head. My personal favorite is I'm working with this lady who has this kidney thing going on. And so I'm like, okay, well, what would be a good remedy for it? And there's like traditional things that you would recommend for a kidney issue,
Like
like,
nettle. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, or
Water.
that too. But anyway, but corn silk and uber ursi. But, I was going through my repertoire of stuff, and it was like nothing was feeling right. And I get the word hydrangea
Oh,
in my,
wow.
and I'm like, huh? And I'm thinking, I have hydrangeas growing in my yard, so, huh? But I have become a listen and validate kind of gal. And it's like uses of hydrangea, kidney issues, and it was like exactly what she needed.
It's amazing, isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
I had a catnip come up for a client,
Had
and
what come up?
catnip. You know, catnip, like what you give cats.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was like, and she goes, "Isn't that for cats?" And I was like, "Let's see it, search." And it was sure enough, it was for anxiety, and she had massive anxiety. It was like the perfect remedy for her, exactly like you said. And I was like, "Wow, I've learned
Uh-huh.
something." Yeah, exactly. But if you were letting your ego come in, it'd be like, oh, catnip. Yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe she likes cats.
But yeah, I mean, but just some weird stuff. I had this one lady who had, I don't know, complaints about headaches. I don't really remember what her complaints were. And I'm talking to her, and I just kept seeing the image. I'm very visual. I mean, I'm a feeler, but I'm primarily visual. I just kept seeing like this water sloshing around in her head and sloshing around. And I just was like, it's like you have water on your brain. And this is like, I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about, you know? And it was before my listen and validate
Hmm.
phase, and she was like, nah, 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 my mother has the same thing. Rah, 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 rah. So she's not listening to me, our time's up. And I'm like, okay, well, good luck. So then I look up water on the brain, and she had all the symptoms of it, and it was genetic,
Oh,
or it could run in a family kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. It was funny. I had this client, a speech pathology client. That's my background. And anyway, and he had epilepsy, and he had all these things kind of happening with him. And his mum's like, "Oh, we just can't find the right treatment." Anyway, so I'm like working with him, and this weird word came through, and I could see the word, but I couldn't pronounce it or anything. So I wrote it down as best I could. The nearest thing I had was like one of those erase boards, you write on them, and yeah, like an etch a sketch, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to quickly write it on here because I still had the client in front of me. And then I quickly went and searched it, and then Google managed to auto correct it. And it was this trial drug or something that was being used for people with epilepsy. And I was like, what? And anyway, and then the mum came in, and I hadn't told her I do all this stuff, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to share a bit of a journey with you, to understand how I came to this. Take it whatever value you like. And so I'm like, this is what happened. This word came to me. I wrote it down, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, I'm going to take pictures of that. I said, take pictures all you want. It's just, and then I don't know if she ever explored it or not, but it was just, like you said, it's like receive and validate, right? And listen and validate, because it's so important. And it actually grows your intuition stronger, right? Because you learn
Hmm.
to just trust and go, all right, well, this is what's coming through. And the amount of times, even I had a client just yesterday and the night before, I was like, were you really close to your grandmother? And she's like, yeah, why? I was like, okay, all right, she's coming. Because I couldn't stop seeing this grandmother just kind of showed up ready to, open up that space and everything. And it's just that trusting and listening, right?
Well, and there's what we do with our clients, but as you work that muscle, I mean,
Mm.
because, people sit there and say, oh, well, I want to open up my intuition. They think like they have to meditate and open their chakras up somehow and like do these very functional things. But it's really about, to me, paying attention and listening. And so when you listen and then validate, or it's like it increases your growth in what's going on. All right, so here's like a totally weird story, not a weird story, but just a listening story, that I share in one of my books, Dang, It Was Me All Along, about listening. And it's totally mundane. I mean, it's not like you're getting some herb or something great. So my dishwasher wasn't draining. And so I call the repair guy, and it's right before Christmas. And he's like, we're going out of town. And I live in a small town, so the choices are kind of thin. And, we won't be back till after the first of the year. And I'm like, okay, no worries. But then I'm looking in the dishwasher, and there's like 4 inches of liquid down there. And I'm like, okay, you need to get that liquid out of there because it'll just be stinky and moldy in 2 weeks. So there's me, and I have like a little coffee cup and a bucket. and some ShamWow towels, and I'm trying to like scoop the water out, which was not working at all. At all. So in my head, I said, well, what would be something better to use? And I got use the turkey baster.
Oh,
I'll tell you what, it worked like a friggin' champ.
I bet it did because the water wouldn't be sloshing around. It's actually got somewhere to go. Yeah.
And it like scooped the water up really quick, and I just was like, whoop, whoosh, whoop, whoosh. And then here's the weirdest thing. So I'm giving a presentation in front of this big room of people, and I tell that story, and I ask the room, I go, so guess what I got? Like, guess what message I received? And this woman yells out, a turkey baster. And I'm like, they're all going to think I cheated and told you. I mean, who would come up with a freaking turkey baster?
I definitely wouldn't because we don't do turkey. Like, it's just like, I only know what it is from American movies, like, but definitely, like, that's
It's good once a year.
exactly. I've done that with the car. I'll be like, what's going on with my car? And they'll be like, the battery. I'm like, okay, I'll just ignore that. And then sure enough, within a few days, flat battery. It's like, okay, I knew that, I should have listened to that. So it is definitely that it can be in all aspects of your life, right? The more that you learn to listen and validate whatever aspect, the more it kind of keeps happening.
But when I talk to people, suggest just like you said, it doesn't matter if you listen or not. Just that you recognize that either you did listen or you didn't listen. You need to take care of the car and you didn't listen and then you suffered the consequence of it. Where
Yep.
if you had listened, then it would all been good. But a lot of us need the cosmic 2x4, not two times, for us to
Thank
make
you.
changes. You're welcome. For us to make changes in our lives. We need to have that consequence. And it's like, oh, well, if I just listened to myself, it would have been better.
Yeah, and I guess I heard someone say a little while ago, and I bring it up often, which is like intuition's meant to be acted upon, not put in a drawer. And I was like, yes, it's so true because the more you ignore it, the harder it is to listen to that inner knowing, and the harder it is to honor what comes up because you end up just defaulting back to your logic and your ego, and that's not going to get you to where you need to go.
Well, and I have found that life works better when you pay attention.
Yes, it does. It does. 100% it does, Dr. Rita. Oh dear. So following Spirit's calling, because that's the only way I can describe the breadth of the books that you've written. How did the ET ones come up, and what about the paranormal and ghost ones as well?
Okay. So this was 2011. So like Ancient Aliens was on TV and those kinds of shows. And so there was an episode, and I think it was Ancient Aliens. It was one of that genre that was talking about the Mayan calendar because December 21st,
Yeah.
2012, the world's coming to an end. And so they were talking about these cycles of time, which really interested me. And they said, well, the Hindu have the same thing. And so I ended up watching the episode again, and they just literally said, and the Hindus have the same thing, which said nothing. And so then, of course, now I have to go like look up the Hindu story and started digging into that, and then found as part of the Hindu cycles of time, they have a story that sounds remarkably like Noah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that just started me on this deep dive into myth and legend and parallels and similarities that you find around the world. I mean, because I went into it pretty cold and walked out with this whole breadth of information. And, and again, my first love in life was archaeology and anthropology. So it really, and cultural stuff, and so it really kind of like allowed that part of me to come back to the surface, that love that I had of that topic. So that was that, and then I did ghost hunting for a while, and ended up with a lot of clients that had entity attachments that were
Yeah.
looking to me for help. Thus, the book came out of that.
Yeah, which I love that. Which even when you were saying about the Hindu story was similar to Noah, there was a documentary on Netflix. I can't remember what it was called, but it was really powerful. Anyway, and they were going through like comparing how can all these cultures have the exact same story, and it was all about the floods, all of it, all the time. And he was going around the world uncovering, like how can they be so accurate, like the buildings and temples in Malta, and they perfectly line up with the stars, all these sorts of things, right? And it was so interesting because he was in the one in Malta, and I'm like, oh, I've been there. Like I knew where he was going to walk before he'd walk, and I've never been there. I feel like I need to go there one day. But there was this. It got up to Atlantis, right? That was the next episode, and I was like, oh, awesome! Like I'm so curious, and my whole TV turned off. Like everything turned off, and they're like, not yet. Yeah, they're like, you're not meant to know this yet. And I was like, okay, all right then, I will just go. And then I had a few experiences after that. And then when I watched that, I was like, oh, there's some truth there, but there's not full truth there. And like it's really interesting what comes through when you're like really open to that, and they're like, you're going to write a book about the truth one day. And I was like, of course I am. Thank you for that. And they're like, not anytime soon, just one day. I was like, all right, thank you. And it's exactly like you said, you just have to listen and then validate. But sometimes you don't get that validation straight away either, because you might get that intuitive hit before everyone else does, and you just have to wait, and then it will be validated. And that sometimes I find is the hardest part, is that trusting, especially when you meet somebody and everyone else is telling you how amazing they are, and you're there going, nah, no, exactly. And
So I
yeah.
think it's interesting that your TV blew up on the Atlantis episode. Okay, so this is in my humble opinion, and my opinion about some things are very different than what you see in the more mainstream ancient mystery people, because I tap into the energy and they just like make stuff up and pull it out their butt, which irritates the hell out of me. I had people, so the book we're talking about is E.T. Chronicles, What Myth and Legends Have to Say About Human Origins. And I do not talk about Atlantis in that book at all. And so I got complaints from people, why don't you talk about Atlantis? And the only way something ended up in the book was if I could find multiple sources telling the same story. With key phrases, the sun, the moon, and the stars were placed in the sky. That was a key phrase you found around the world. The Noah story, they're all the same. Key phrases. And there was no corroboration of the Noah story. So, and there's no ruins. There's more evidence of Mu or Lemuria, in the South Pacific.
Yep.
To support that culture and the destruction of whatever that land mass is or was.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Lemuria, because I listened to this audio book. I think it was The Women of Lemuria or something like that. And I was
Church war.
I'm not sure. But anyway, and I was listening to it, and when it resonates so true in your soul, and you're just like, yes, yes, this makes so much sense. It's just like, yes, and there was just so much in that listening to it, and I'm just driving and I'm like, yes, like I was so excited because it resonated so much. But then my perspective of Atlantis isn't the golden shiny thing that they make it out to be. It was actually a place where they use psychics for their own advantage. And that's why I feel there's a lot of this mismatch of energy. Look, you're nodding. It's like this mismatch of energy, because they're like, oh, this is where all the ancient tech was. I'm like, no, that's not where all the ancient tech came from. The ancient tech's always been there. It's just been buried and hidden in plain sight. Like there's so much in plain sight. It's just you have to unpack it all. And anyone that brought it to light, it's kind of mysteriously disappeared. So it's just really, really conscious about that. And again, trusting what resonates with your soul and what doesn't, because, that is where it comes to any part of this journey.
Mm-hmm. I could go off on like so many tangents on this. But when you sit there, all right, I'll go here. When you sit there and you start talking about material that there is no hard evidence, but there's stuff that there's supposedly hard evidence, it's safe and effective. I'll just say that, might not really be true. And it's just somebody saying something and they have the credentials and sorry.
I'm laughing because I was the same. Keep going.
But they have the credentials and you're supposed to listen to them,
Mm-hmm.
because they're right and anything you might say or think is wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
are you familiar with the site at Göbekli Tepe? Are you familiar with Göbekli Tepe? So
No.
it's a site in Turkey that was buried 8,000 BC. And so it existed long before then. And it has these massive upright pillars. If you saw a picture of it, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I know that place. Anyway, and so I ended up writing an article about why Göbekli Tepe was buried. And oh my God, the knife stabs. It's like, well, Graham Hancock says this,
Oh,
and
yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And so the leading thought was they buried it to save it for posterity. They buried it because they were under attack and they wanted to preserve it. I don't know. It was three really, like, why would people 12,000 B or 8,000 BC bury, and it's 16 acres that they've excavated or that they know that there's stuff 16 acres.
Yeah, I know. Why would they purposely bury that? Exactly. Exactly.
But my take on it, because one of the things of my investigations was the whole concept of taboos. Okay. And so if there was something that was royal, like, the rulers were either the gods or they were the children of the gods, had this divine aspect, and you couldn't touch their stuff. You couldn't walk on the ground they walked on. You couldn't drink out of their cup. You had to be like the Levites that went into the Holy of Holies and have breastplates and this whole ritual thing, and they could touch it, but nobody else could, and you would become unholy or whatever, or the thing would become unholy. So my take on it was this place was such a sacred site to these people back then that they buried it, because if somebody came along 50 years from now and picked up a rock from that site and took it to their house, they would be breaking a taboo and they would enact the spirits against them. Now, doesn't that make more sense than they were saving it for the future?
Yes, 100% it does. 100%. And it's just, we've been so lied to, like on so many aspects of every part of our lives. And when you start to unpack it, it actually takes you a moment to it's almost like you get that deer in headlight moment. That's what happened with me. Like, I was watching this documentary and I knew in my heart it was so true, but it took my brain a little bit longer to catch up to it, because it's just, we've been so conditioned that this is how things went and things like that. And then I had all these flashbacks to when I was learning about it and asking questions that no one could answer. So I already knew in my heart, which is why it was easier to accept. But it's that mass psychosis and that mass indoctrination into a certain way of thinking that we've been conditioned to be in, which is all being designed to squish our intuition. Oh, no, you don't listen to your gut. That's just emotions. You got to listen to your head. Like all these things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Oh, you can't stand up and share what you can do in the world. This is like in Australia, we have a thing called tall poppy syndrome. So if you stand up and you're different, you have to get cut down. It's like it's a culture thing. It's very crazy. So if you sit there and tell people what you do, and it sounds like you're bragging, then, and it just could be you're just generally talking about what you do, then they'll cut you down and make you feel inferior. And it's such a big thing. It's like such a cultural thing. But the reason they do that is because they don't want anyone to stand out and be a leader. So it's like the more you learn about the reasons they do these things, the more you sit there and go, how much do I have to unlearn? And I feel that's why we've chosen to incarnate on earth at this time, right? Where we're just here to unpack it all and share it with people.
There's so much, I'm going to say weird, because I don't even know how else to say it. So much weird. And, I'm going to kind of throw the evil word in there, like not good stuff going on that people are doing to other people. Did that
It's
follow?
terrible. Yeah.
But I find it easier, and this is my line, and I'm sticking to it. It's easier for me to believe that a group of reptilians are living in underground bases, controlling everything, than it is to think that these people, elected officials, billionaires, or whatever, are so freaking evil that they would do this stuff. I mean,
Mm.
it's just my mind can't own it.
Yeah.
It just can't own it.
Yeah. I completely understand, and I'll unpack more with you soon. But as we finish our time up on this segment, I asked the guests that come on, Dr. Rita, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
We just had that piece of conversation. How's about like to get rid of all the liars and for people to be in their integrity?
Yeah.
I think that this planet is so lacking integrity that it hurts me because I really value that character in people.
Yeah. 100%. And the accountability too, right? Where we don't blame everybody else and actually take responsibility for ourselves. 100%. And if people want to come find you or your books or come work with you, Dr. Rita, where can they find you?
So my website is soulhealer.com. That's soulhealer.com. I've been posting a lot to Substack. And so that's at Dr. Rita Louise on Substack. And every Thursday night, I host what's called Thursday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise, and I cover a topic. So this week I'm talking about surrender, and then I'm opening up, you never know. I'm opening up the chat room and that people can get free on-air psychic readings. So at 7 p.m. Central, the best place to find it is on YouTube. So that's Just Energy Radio on YouTube. That's 3 words, Just Energy Radio. 7 p.m. Central, hit the live link, join the chat, hang out and have fun.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to put all that in the show notes too. And maybe I need to tune in this Thursday. I have to figure out the time conversion stamp. So whatever. But thank you. So
because it would be tomorrow in 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could do that. I think if I don't have an appointment, who knows? Anyway, we'll figure it out. So thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Rita, and thank you for sharing your journey and a bit about what you do. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.